kids coming in, getting to the point where they understand that swimming does not define them as a person. And if they know that me and coaching, that this doesn't define me as a person, I think it's easier for them to understand, okay, big picture. I want to swim fast. I want to do good in school. I want to have impact on people. I want to be impacted. I want the full thing, right? And I think a lot of them don't get it till afterward.
Welcome, where we aim to highlight inspiring people doing amazing things in the Swim Strong family and in the greater swim community. All right, I'm here with Coach Braden Holloway, NC State head coach, and we're going to dive into some pretty awesome stuff that they're doing over there with the Wolfpack. Thanks for joining us, Braden. But before we dive in, we got to get to our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. First question, what's your walkout song?
Sad but true, Metallica, 1991.
Good pick. How about your favorite hospitality room at a swim meet?
Greensboro Aquatic Center.
Oof.
Pork, the mac and cheese, the sweet tea.
It's good stuff. If you could hang out with a celebrity for one day, which celebrity would you pick?
Probably Kevin Hart, because I would just want to have fun, and I think he's a funny guy.
How about if you had to survive on a deserted island and you only get to pick two people from NC State to give you the best chance of survival, who are you taking?
Number one, Mr. Tough as Nails from Philly, Mark Bernardino on my staff.
Yes.
He could go catch a shark and we would just cook it and eat it. I'd probably go with assistant coach Kevin Happ as my second, because he analyzes everything. He is a numbers guy. He's a type A type dude, so he would be able to create a way to get off the island.
It's good. How about your favorite cartoon character?
Ooh, Captain Caveman from the 80s. Anybody who's 40 and 50 years old probably watched that one. Captain Caveman.
Favorite movie of all time?
Ooh, in 1995, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro came out with a movie called Heat. Best gun scene in a movie too, by the way.
There you go, people. And last but not least, best part about getting to coach at NC State?
I get to be myself.
That's a good.
It's a people first type place, and I get to be me.
That is awesome, Braden. Thanks for doing the rapid fire questions. You did a great job there, and we're gonna jump in to your background, talk about the Wolfpack, talk about all kinds of different things going on right now. And before we dive into all that, can you just share a little background for everybody watching of your swim journey, how you got into the sport and how you got into coaching? Just kind of fast forward from the beginning to now so everybody can get to know Braden a little bit.
Okay, well, I was born and no, I'm just kidding. I started, I'm from Louisiana. I swam in Baton Rouge, and my first coach was Eddie Sinnott and Sam Freeze, and two unique, awesome individuals. And they got me in love with the sport. I swam. I was able enough to get recruited. I chose NC State. I came here, swam for Scott Hammond. I wasn't planning to coach. I actually started dating a young lady who is currently my wife still, and we've been married for almost 22 years. And so when she got it, she was an engineer. When she got a job, she had all these job offers. I didn't really want to do the long distance stuff, so I followed her to her where she got a job and started in Chicago, Illinois. And I did a couple of jobs, and they just didn't fit me. And then eventually, I got hired by an old friend who got hired as a head coach of an age group team, USA YMCA team.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Thompson still does a couple of high school coaching in Illinois. He hired me to join him. I got into it, and then one thing led to another. I enjoyed it. My first college job was with Max Obermiller, who retired last year. and at the University of the South in Swanee, Tennessee. I was lucky enough to do it because my wife and her job, they allowed her to start working remote and
Oh.
only travel every other week. So it allowed me to get into college coaching. So she would go to Chicago, work for a week, and when she would do that, I would recruit hard. I would get ahead. And then when she came to Swanee, and there wasn't much to do in Swanee, but we did a lot of hiking. We had a dog, and we were outside constantly. I wouldn't recruit as hard, so I could kind of devote to our marriage. Um, because we were newly married and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I eventually went to Virginia Tech as an assistant coach with Ned Skinner. Unbelievable guy, taught me so much. Took care of me, like just allowed me to grow. Gave me a chance. Gave me a chance to. I mean, he could have just. I didn't have that much. I had a couple of years of club, a couple of years in college. Eventually he promoted me up to associated head coach, and um, my wife and I had 3 kids. We ended up staying at Virginia Tech for a long time, and it was great. And then, my wife, I mean, we swam together here at NC State when they were looking for a new coach, and they gave me a call, and it was kind of a no-brainer to go back home. And I'm in year 13 of being back at NC State.
Wow. It's a pretty cool story to not only have met your wife, but also to have gone to NC State and end up coaching back at your alma mater. What's that like being back where you have so many memories from your life? What's it like being the head coach there now?
It's interesting because some things I'm like, man, this is really kind of the same, and then some things are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
In a good way, right? So, I think for me, I think the big thing is when I talk about team, when I talk about pride for a school, like our basketball team won last night in the ACC basketball tournament. My family we were glued in, right? I think for our current team, when I'm teaching them about that, and they know I mean it, like they know it's from the heart, like I care about this team,
Yeah.
and it means a lot to me. The NC State logo, the Tuffy, the walking the campus, going to different places on campus, they just know it means a lot to me. And I think it helps deliver a message of understanding what it's like to be a part of something that's bigger than your own personal journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool.
So,
And um, can you talk a little bit about the expectations when you came to NC State? Where the program was at, and kind of just what people thought about that move, and maybe if people were like wondering why go back to NC State. I know that NC State wasn't always the powerhouse that it is right now, and I'm just curious if you had people questioning that move and what that looked like for you.
I mean, I was probably the one who questioned it the most. I told my wife we're happy at Virginia Tech. Our kids are young, they're growing. Um, I think they were eighth or ninth in the conference. I was at Virginia Tech, and we were building that program up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think at the end of the day, my wife was like, "Why are we not going to go back and help where we went?" I was scared to come and fail. I didn't want to fail here. Like I didn't like, what if we go back and I can't get it done, and then I just feel bad, right, or whatever. And she was like, "Why are you coaching? Like, why are we doing this? Like, let's go. Let's challenge yourself. Let's." I mean, she kind of smacked me around and said, "Let's go home." And I just needed a little bit of a swift kick in the butt of like, dude, let's go. Let's see if we can get this done. Let's go help this team. And a few people I think were nervous for me. Like, man, it's just not a whole lot going on there right now. And my I'll be honest, my first year was miserable. It was tough. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really want to take the slow route to getting better. I wanted to get better quickly
Mm-hmm.
because I got a shelf life of how much energy is bolted up in here, right? And I got a lot of it still, but like I I wanted to do it quick because I've seen different teams or programs throughout history where the slow build back turnaround, it takes forever, and sometimes they never make it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I posted this, when our guys won the ACC championship this year. I posted this because I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but when I first got here, my first year, I went and I recruited at some meet, and I had another coach that was there recruiting, and they were like, what's your goals in NC State? And I was like, I want to create a winning program,
Hmm.
men and women. I want to create a winning program, a winning culture. And that person said, "Oh, that's cute," and kind of laughed. And it that obviously stuck with me for a little bit, but um, yeah, I know here it could be done. I didn't know the best way to get it done, and when Debbie Yao was the athletic director who hired me, and I wasn't even the first choice. I think I think there was somebody ahead of me. I know there was somebody ahead of me because when I first got here, I got the receipts from that person's interview. So I was like, all right, I guess this I was the second option. But I kind of told my AD like I feel like I'm hitting my prime as far as energy and tenacity and being aggressive, and like if I were you, I would want that,
Yeah.
and I think maybe the other guy said no, and so I got lucky, but it's been good. It's been a good ride so far, and we've done some really good, cool things with both programs, and you know, people a lot of times they're quickly to think about the men because we've been able to to win a bunch of championships, but like our women at this day have been the highest at NCAA's. They've been higher than our men when they were second. So I didn't want to come here and just help the men's team. Like I wanted to come here and build two teams that were always a viable option where people can go have a great experience, get better, have the access to get a great degree, but also an important time of their life where they're figuring out who they are as adults, right? And that happens in college.
Yeah.
I don't know what I just went off
Yeah,
into, but
no,
that's
that's
kind of
all
where I went.
that's all great, man. That's all so great, and it gives people great insight into just your mindset, the type of program you wanted to build and are continuing to build, the culture at NC State. I think when people are like that story you told, the guy who told you it was cute that you wanted to build a winning culture, that would fire me up so much. I would say thank you. I appreciate that because I'm going to use that as fuel. I love it when people say I can't or something can't be done. That's my favorite fuel. So anyway, we appreciate you, whoever you were, for fueling Braden and and this legendary run going on right now. But something I really appreciate that I can hear in your tone and the way that you speak is um, you had a desire to be great, but you also have a significant amount of humility, which I don't find too much at the college ranks. No knock on anybody, but some people really, really think highly of themselves. And I don't mean in like everybody thinks highly of their team and confidence wise, but like, oh, if you come here, I'm going to turn you into an Olympian. If you come here, I'm going to make sure this happens. And you're talking about your wife slapping you around to open your eyes that like, hey, this is a good opportunity. And you're talking about like, hey, I don't even think I was the first choice. And like you're saying things that most people would try to hide. And I love that because you don't like there's not a insecurity kills coaching in my opinion. And I'm just curious, like, why why do you have that type of mindset, humility, humble mindset? Where does that come from? Is that learned? Is that something you've always had? I have a ton of respect for that, and I'm just curious.
I mean, I had two great parents. I mean, they're still around, and they go to the conference meet, and they hang out with our college team parents. I think they have more fun now than they did when I swam. Um, I was brought up that hard work, you earn what you earn, and when you mess up, you hold yourself accountable. When you fall down, you pick yourself up, and I think for me, like my number one job in my life right now is being the best dad to four kids, and that's not always telling them what they want to hear, right? That requires I got to teach my sons how to be gentlemen. I got to teach my ladies how to be, the best that they can be, along with my wife. Probably one B right now is I need to be a great husband. Like my biggest supporter, my biggest fan is at home for me, and Mary is. I don't want to go a day in my life without her. Um, And I think I have no problem letting people know that coaching swimming is third, and it's a distant third. And like I don't some coach, this world's going to keep turning,
Mm,
right? I mean, if I don't coach here at NC State, someone will probably come in, and if they find the right person, we'll keep it rolling, right? It's it's understanding that like when I die, if it says world's best coach, then I messed up,
mm.
because it better say great dad and loving husband or whatever. Hopefully they put on there. Actually, I'll probably just do ashes and just spread me in the ocean. But I just, I think for me, it's like one guy I looked up to, and I never told him this, and I probably should because he's still around, is Dan Ross at Purdue.
Hmm.
And if you ask every college coach who is a awesome guy, awesome individual who takes the time to talk to you, he will text me every now and then. But Dan Ross is a mentor of mine and I've never coached with him. I don't think I've ever had a swimming talk with him. He gives me words of encouragement to be a dad and a husband every single time. And I think
Hmm.
that's what I want my legacy to be. I want it to be that I did a good job with people. Yeah, I mean, I'll get on kids, right? If kids mess up, I'll discipline them or whatever. But like, that's a part of growing up. And I feel like, there are coaches out there that they don't get credit enough because they don't win big things, or they don't place top 10 at nationals, or those coaches never won a national title or whatever. But like, I guarantee you, Dan Ross impacted
Hmm.
thousands of individuals in such a fantastic way.
Hmm.
Like that's what I yearn to be,
That's
I think.
amazing. That's really amazing. And shout out Dan for the impact. Thanks for sharing all that. And I do think that is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially at the college level, because there is so much on your shoulders that you have to do between coaching and recruiting and all the admin and everything else that comes with it. And um, how, how do you strike that balance of being a phenomenal coach, phenomenal husband, phenomenal father, and obviously focusing on the family first, but still doing a great job? I have never thought that those things have to be mutually exclusive. Some people I've heard coaches say like, "Hey, you should just never get married if you want to be a great coach," or you just expect your family to fall apart because your spouse is going to get upset or whatever just because you're always. It's like I don't think it has to be like that. But how do you balance that? What does that look like for you with making tough decisions and making sure that you're being great in all areas of life?
I think probably it starts with, under letting my staff know that I want them to be the same way. There are days where I tell my staff, like, do not go to work today. Go on a walk. Go, and some of my staff is married, some of them are not. I mean, Mark's been married for a long time, and he's actually reminds me sometimes, like, Coach, you don't have to be in the office right now. Get out of here. Um, but like I think letting my staff and my team know that my kids and my wife come first. And I tell the team every year, right out of the gates, I say, look, there are days where I need to be gone and I need to be at that baseball game or that soccer game or that play or whatever. Um, or there are days where I need to leave early because my wife and I are going to go out to dinner. So I think being upfront with my team, I even tell recruits, like, hey, I don't call as much because my duties after practice go right to, I'm usually a carpool dad for a while, right? And right now soccer, wrestling and is kind of taking the cake of where I am. But um, I want to be active with my kids' lives. And that's some of the best conversations I have with my kids is in the car, taking them to what they have going on. And I think, recruits know that because I tell them, like, look, I'm a little bit harder to find a window because, and I'm honest with them. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. But, I think I think being vulnerable is the first step you got to take and be honest with everything. And, every year my wife, we kind of joke about it now, but, um, at the end of every year, I ask my wife permission to go again. Like, do I have are you okay with me doing another year in coaching? Knowing some of my travel and knowing this and that. And at one point she might say, hey, I'm ready for a change. Like and it, she's not like, I mean, she swam in college, so it's a little bit easier for her to get the ins and outs. But
Sure.
I ask her every year, is it okay for me to go again? And, right now she says yes. And I'll keep doing that because I'm not willing to lose my wife and my kids to the sport. Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's a passion, right? And, it's a job. And, but, I think just making sure you surround yourself with the right people is the best way to create balance.
Mm.
And I'll be honest, Ned Skinner at Virginia Tech was huge for me in that. Yeah, because when I went to Virginia Tech, I was aggressive. Like I was young. We didn't have any kids yet. My wife and I had no kids yet, and I was eager. Virginia Tech was coming into the ACC. We're at the bottom, and I wanted, let's go, let's go, let's go. And Ned did a great job of making me realize, hey, there's more to life than doing this, right? You have a family that you're starting. Mary and I were building a house. And so I think he was great for me at that point in my career because I was still fairly early and I was competitive. And he got a hold of me early to teach me like the most important job in your life, my friend, is your wife and this baby on the way. And so he was just spectacular for me at that point in my career. I needed that.
That's incredible. That perspective is so great, and just being vulnerable and honest with, I think people struggle with that with recruits saying like, hey, my family comes first, because they want them to feel like, oh, you're going to be everything to us. And then I think it's also tough being honest with your family and being like, hey, are you okay with this? And you mentioned just, you have been surrounded by phenomenal people who have guided you in the right direction, supported you, understood what it takes, but they're with you every step of the way. Like that's awesome. And it's awesome for your athletes to get to see, because all of them, if, in my opinion, if you put your entire life into swimming and you show them that your entire life is about that, that's setting them up for failure too, right? Because then they think that swimming is the whole world. And then when their career ends, what else is there? But if they have the head coach who says, no, it's third for me behind these things, and there's a lot more important things in life, then you have a much greater sense of your identity than just being a swimmer. I don't know. Do you see that translate to like having a strong family-like culture at NC State, and people who go on to, be successful outside of the pool and inside the pool? How does that have an impact on the culture? Because I think a lot of coaches would fear that, because they, like I said, when telling a recruit, hey, family comes first, that might push people away. But I don't think that's the case at all.
Right. I think a lot of times it's with kids coming in, getting to the point where they understand that swimming does not define them as a person. And if they know that me and coaching, that this doesn't define me as a person, I think it's easier for them to understand, okay, big picture. I want to swim fast. I want to do good in school. I want to have impact on people. I want to be impacted. I want the full thing, right? And I think a lot of them don't get it till afterwards. I got a text from a guy, Jeffrey Carter. Uh, I think he's our architect area now, construction contractor or something. And he was in the Wilmington area. I think he's now in Charlotte. And he was never one of our big guys, and but he and I had a good relationship. And he sent me a text like, it's amazing being out of swimming and in real life, and how many things that you spoke about and we did as a program and we focus on as a program impact my life right now. And I had no idea when I swam, and I think that's really cool for coaches to get, is because he's not talking about swimming at all, right? He's like, hey, I hit this best time my last swim or whatever. And it was about how it's helping him right now as a person. And that's what I mean, I'm sure there's a million of coaches that agree with me, but that's what I love. I love that part more than because we're going to do this and we're going to have champions and we're going to have school records and we're going to have this and we're going to have a tough part, near misses, missed NCAs. Oh, I didn't score. Oh, I just missed the Olympic team. What we're going to have as coaches, we're going to have that come and go. But the things that really stand to us, I think the most, is the impact that we can help somebody. Like I when I get invited to a wedding, I absolutely love it. Like, and sometimes I can't go and I'm bummed because it just means that they want you there and you had an impact enough to that they're thinking of you at their biggest moment, probably to their point, and they
Mhm.
want you to be a part of it. I think that's when you do a good job, and that just
Yeah.
carries more weight. I think in just the end of the day, that's really more important.
So you're talking a lot about just how much of an impact you can have on people outside the pool. Those are the things that last. I think that's really insightful because coaching highs and lows, they do come and go. All every year, you're going to have so many different experiences like that. And if you're just latching onto those, it's going to be super fleeting. But when you have something like you mentioned, going to people's weddings and getting messages years down the road of how you made a difference and how they're thinking about the things you taught them in life, like that's you really can't beat that. Can you talk a little bit about the culture at NC State, like on deck? If you're a This is something that drew me in to develop a relationship with you guys. Your coaching staff across the board is so genuine, so phenomenal. I remember, I'll never forget this, and I told him this in person, so you can ask him about this. But I remember when I was at U.S. Nationals, and Swim wasn't really as well known a few years back because it was still in like its earlier stages. And I remember Mark Bernardino coming up to me and just talking to me and saying like, "I think you're doing great things. I really love the passion. I can tell it's different." Like, and he was just so kind, and there was almost nobody else at that meet who was at college because I was there with just a couple of swimmers and who are in high school, and uh, it just felt like there was a lot of people there who were like, "Oh, I'm too good to talk to you," but then he just came up and was just having the most genuine conversation, was so kind and like saying all kinds of nice things, and I was like, "Wait a minute, aren't you the legend in this conversation? Like, aren't you the one who's done like incredible things at all the stops that you've been in your career?" And so and we talked for like a good hour, and I'll never forget that. And then each interaction with all the other coaches on your staff over time, I was like, this is just an NC State thing. This is just the way that like they treat people. I don't know if it's what you look for when you're hiring people or just like, but just genuine people who will really care for you. And so I was like, I want to get to know these people more. And the more I got to know everybody at NC State, the more blown away I was by the staff, and that creates a culture for the kids. And I'm just wondering, what can athletes expect if they're going to come to NC State? What are the expectations on them? What's the type of team culture that you guys have that makes you unique, maybe compared to anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty loaded question when you think culture and yeah, I mean to start that when I do hire a coach, there's so many great coaches out there, and there's so many ways to get from point A to point B that I want to find a great person. Like when Brian Barnes was on my staff, who's now the head coach at Duke. When I knew I didn't really know him as well, but I knew his story about um, when his wife passed away from cancer, and they had two kids, and he got out of coaching to take care of his kids, and then he got back in and was doing a good job. I knew that was a guy I wanted to talk to. This is a family guy, and he's only going to bring positives to our program with what I look for. And yeah, being a great person is without a doubt number one on the list I look for. How do you treat people? And I think here, people always want to know, like, what do we do, this and that, and there's maybe some things that we do in training that's different. There's certain philosophies that I have that I really like. There's certain things that we do I think work really well. There's some things we do that don't. We got to fix. But I think honesty is pretty high up in my book. I want to be open with people. I am vulnerable with our athletes. I'll tell them straight up. I tell them when I make mistakes. Sometimes I tell them stories about my past that were not good, that helped me be better because they're doing what I already did. So I think being open and being honest with each other, I think is huge. I want them to be who they are. I do not want people to come here and be someone they're not. That is not our way of doing it. I used to love. We had a guy named Jacob Malachek who's still swimming down with Coley in Texas. Go make another run. Jacob was a unique guy, and it was awesome seeing that guy flourish and being who he was. I mean, he would dance in the stands to get ready, to warm up, like his activation. And our team, when they would watch him, be like, "This is so cool! He's got some new moves." It wasn't ever, "Look at that goofy guy up in the stands." It was like, "Hey, Jacob will be here when he's here. He's getting ready." The
Mm-hmm.
quiet guys, the quiet ladies, the loud ladies, and watching them mesh. I had, at one point before Catherine Burkhoff got here, I had two backstrokers that were really good, Elise Hahn, and Alexia Zevnik, and they were complete opposites. They were so opposite, but they were able to push each other in the right way. And, they would push each other's buttons a little bit, but it was just them being who they are. Not one of them had to evolve for the other one or whatever. They found their own ways to be successful with who they are, and I think that's NC State. Like, I don't, I tell recruits up front, I don't have the special thousand or well, I don't even know how much our pool seats, but like, we don't have a brand new Taj Mahal pool, or we don't like, it's we put people first, right? And yeah, I wish our budget was a little bit better. Yeah, I wish we could travel to this place a little bit more. But for us, we just take the time to really get to know them. And some kids don't want it as much, and we don't force it. Like if someone doesn't want a big
Mm-hmm.
relationship with me, I don't force it. I don't say, "Hey, you need to come to my office." Like, dude, you want it with me? Let's create it so it's natural. I don't push it on people. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that the expectation is you come in. What you get in is what you get out. Work hard. You don't just show up and get better by
Yep.
just being here. Like I think people sometimes show up and they got to be like, "Oh man, I got to work hard." I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how we do it, And um, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of the way
How
it
do you
is, I
guys
guess. Yeah.
how do you guys op how do you guys operate as a coaching staff? Like, you guys have a pretty great sense of togetherness and people knowing their roles and just working together as a unit. But what's that culture like that you guys try to create with the coaching staff and who does what?
I would say when I first got here, I was trying to figure that out. I had like a coaching, I don't even know what you call it, like a spreadsheet of roles. And it
Mm-hmm.
was great. And then I quickly found out I don't need that because now I'm learning what you're really good at, what you like to be good at, what you don't like. And so our coaching staff and responsibilities, it evolves. Like there are certain things like, Dan Clubsy's been with me for a long time now. And there are certain things I will not have anyone else do because he's so good at it. And I think they kind of know. Like I don't, so they're all out here, and we kind of have a lobby in our offices. We're like in a square, and the lobby's in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly chirping to each other, loud, so we're next to each other, and I think our structure of who does what evolves. And it evolves on basically, okay, who's coming in and what are their strengths? Let's use them. Okay, here are their weaknesses. Okay, let's help them. Um, so I think it just kind of, but again, it takes communication and it takes being open and honest about everything. And I don't have like Monday morning staff meetings every Monday. I just don't do that because we're constantly doing it. Like I don't like we'll
Yeah.
have okay, hey, let's have a meeting at 10. Can everybody meet in 10 minutes? Can everybody meet in an hour? Who's getting some lunch? Can we meet up? Can we talk about something? And I'll text it out in case they're not here. Um, but like I don't have office hours. Like I mean most of us are in the office a good bit, but there are times where you need some space. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're connecting on really good wavelengths, then it just trickles down to the team.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And the coaching staff is always going to set the tone, right? If you don't have a strong culture within the coaching staff, it's going to be really tough to have a strong culture with the athletes. And that's definitely something that you guys have that that is a enviable spot for that athletes should want to be a part of, because it's not always the case. And so I appreciate that about you guys for sure. What's something, if you had to say, there's definitely a lot of coaches who would love to be in the position that you are now, and kind of have a career path that mimics yours, where you really work your way up, and you have a ton of success. Anybody who's listening, hopefully they've heard that the result, it's really a result of focusing on people and character, and all the other things are just a byproduct. But what would you say to like a young coach who's like, man, I want to be like Braden. I want to do what he's done. They're just getting into the coaching game. What's advice you would have given your younger self getting into the coaching game you wish you would have known, or somebody now that if you were mentoring them, like, hey, here's what I would tell you?
Ooh, I would say someone who wants to get going is have a level of patience throughout the process, because sometimes if you want too much too soon, you end up, maybe you find a way where you're skipping past really valuable parts of the learning curve. Um, and like I remember when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'd love to be a head coach or my own program, and then like I quickly found out like, whew, these guys got to, the head coaches got to do a lot of stuff that I don't really want to go do it. Um, but I think, just stay true to the process of creating the best version of yourself, I think is important. There are certain things that coaches absolutely know in themselves that they are really important to them. Don't ever lose sight of that. And then, obviously being open-minded throughout that process. And, um, like the best part of my career of learning about the very beginning of things was when I was in Division III University of the South with Max Obermiller. You're like, there is no restrictions of you have to be a practice, you have to be a practice. It was like you had to really help people stay in love with the sport. Because there's no, they didn't have all these scholarships or this and that. There was like, if they're not there, they're not there. Like, when I was there, they had a bunch of guys that volunteered at the fire department, and that was they loved it. So we kind of had to build a schedule around them so they could get their shifts in, because that was really important to be the fire department of the school.
Mm.
And which is kind of cool, by the way. But there
That
were
is really cool.
practices they'd had to. Oh yeah, there were practices they had to go. Um, so I think allowing them to make sure they keep that passion, don't take that away from them, right? And so we kind of built our schedule around that. And, but it was really important for me at that part. If I didn't start in Division III, I probably would have missed that aspect of coaching. Of, is this a swimmer who's showing up for practice, or is this a swimmer who's preparing for practice? Right? There's a difference, right? And so trying to make sure you don't miss out on that part of your career, I think is important. And I do feel like certain scenarios, like it doesn't have to be a Power 5 school to get this big old experience. Sometimes the better experiences are these different schools where you really learn about yourself as a coach and how to handle and develop and build relationships. So I would say my advice is stay true to yourself and don't be afraid to go. Just respect the process of learning and growing and soaking in as much information as you can so you can develop your style based off what you know and what you like.
That's great. That's great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. And just to finish up here, and I really appreciate your time today. This has been awesome, and I'm sure for anybody watching, impactful. Um, but just kind of last thing here, what's kind of the dream for NC State over the next 5 years? I know some big goals in mind, but what are some of the things that you're thinking about for the program in the future?
Well, we have a couple things on the horizon that hopefully we'll be able to make public soon. But I think for me, the biggest thing is just helping kids reach the goals that they want to achieve, helping them work through adversity. I mean, we have a lot of people here that are going to vie for Olympic teams. This year and the next cycle, we're going to have a lot of those type of kids here. and do what we can to help them to reach those dreams. Along the process is, seeing the best team that we can create. Sometimes that's where we stand from a GPA wise, from our academic standpoint. Where does it stand from a performance standpoint in the pool? And I don't necessarily sometimes say, okay, this is our absolute goal, because I don't want to be the one who says it. Like, it's got to be the team leading the charge, and each student athlete has to be committed to whatever goal they say. And obviously I could say these goals, but I got to stay committed to it through the down times, the up times, or whatever. So um, really just creating the best culture we possibly can for them to achieve success, and or have at least more opportunities to achieve that success is what we want to do.
I love that. Being able to have a culture driven by the athletes, that's amazing. So you can say whatever goals you want, but if the athletes aren't on board with the goals, it's a totally different thing, right? So
Right.
I actually love that answer. And so take note. If you're someone looking at NC State, you better come in with a mindset of wanting things for yourself and contributing to the team. But that's such a great thing, because when athletes own their journey, like it's pretty scary how far they can go. It's hard to stop an athlete who wants something more than their coach wants it for them. But Braden, thanks so much for your time on here. It's been an absolute privilege, pleasure to have you on. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom, for all the things you're doing for the swimming world, all the incredible things you're doing at NC State. Good luck with everything you have ahead. I have no doubt you guys are going to continue to make a huge impact and see continued success. Thanks for your time.
Eric, thank you so much for having me. Kudos to everything you're doing for the sport, and people across the world, and everyone you're working with. You're doing a great job, man. Keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch a new episode each Monday. You can also check us out on social media at SwimStrong Dryland. If you would like to join the SwimStrong family, visit our website at swimstrongdryland.com.